mais je pense que c'est important quand on est comme ça, puis viens chercher ça pour réussir.
Oh my goodness.
We're going to get started. The presentation will be 40 minutes, and then it'll be 5 minutes for questions and answers. The presentation is going to be recorded.
Hello, everyone. Do you hear me well? Okay, my name is Daniel Dumas. I'm working for KPMG, and I'm an enterprise architect. So I'm here with some CIO that have done some enterprise architecture mandate. Daniel Levasseur from University of Ottawa, Marc Denoncourt from Concordia University, and Guylaine Roquet from McGill University. So, can you put the presentation on?
Okay, that's set that up here.
No, I just put it on yours. Okay.
Dani, si tu veux, je peux prendre mon ordi après.
Ouais, mais je pense que tout est...
Mais il était supposé avoir les clés. Ah, une chance que tout est prêt.
Good. So today what we will do, we are for 40 minutes, so it will not be long presentation. So I will do some introduction about EA for universities, and after that, Daniel, Marc, and Guylaine will speak a bit about their case studies and speak about their experience with EA. So, and after, we will have a question period. So what is EA? EA, in fact, is like city planning. I think everybody knows what is city planning. We're thinking about rules, we're thinking about maps of the underground, of the city, of the streets, of everything. And like city planning, we have to do a vision, we have to do an evolution of the city. Why this comparison is so interesting is, like city planning, we cannot get rid or destroy the city to build a new one. So we have to evolve with the current asset. We have to evolve the old building with the new buildings and to be sure that it will still be working. So EA is a bit the same. And this is what we have in terms of evolution of IT. So what's the value of IT? For sure, we speak about defining the current asset. So those assets, not just for central IT, we have to define those assets for all of the university, and this is by itself a bit of a challenge. We have to identify and prioritize all of the opportunities that we will have on the institution. We have to define guiding principle. We have to define a target. But globally, we have to align IT with the business. And doing that, we will have a lot of communication to do, and we try to bring IT as a partner with all of the faculties, with all of the institution. So it's really to get every dollar, to optimize every dollar you invest in your IT from all groups, not just from central IT. How are we doing that? So usually a project is a lot of input. We need a lot of input to do that. So as we have to understand where the university wants to go. Not just globally, but we have to understand the academic plan. We have to understand each unit or services where they want to go in terms of strategy. We have to define those rules. We call it enterprise architecture principles. We have to understand the trends. I think you're here to learn a lot of those trends, but we have to understand what are the trends that will affect or can be useful to our university. We have to understand all business requirements. And I can say that in all universities, there's many requirements coming out from all units and from all faculties. And just to do that in a project, to meet with every unit, every faculty, it's something interesting. And we have to understand all assets that you have on campus. As I said, not just the central IT, but to understand the asset that you share with the faculties or that are built with the faculties. After that, we just want to have a diagnostic to understand what are the issues, what are the challenges, what are the good things to define after that the target and to define a roadmap. This is really what is a project, an enterprise architecture project. And I think what is important, we show to you a lot of frameworks, is to do it quite fast. I really like that expression, just enough architecture, just in time. It's very easy, and architects sometimes are specialized that way to go very deep and to have detailed information. I think it's just to stay at a high-level perspective, to get enough, and to have a lot of artifacts or framework that you can use and speak with the business. Many artifacts that we're using, one is higher education reference model. You will see one in the example, just to define what is your university and how efficient is each of those business functions. And using those other framework like technical framework, like strategy roadmap, like document management framework, and using those framework will be a huge accelerator to ensure that you can deliver an EA in a short period of time. So, I can speak a long time about EA, but I think the best here is to let them talk about their experience and what they get through an EA project. So, Marc.
Good morning, everybody. I'm going to try to do a 3-hour presentation in 10 minutes. So that's a challenge. Okay. So a bit about my context. Concordia, it's 4 faculties plus 1 school of extended learning. Over 45,000 students, 7,000 faculty and staff, and a number of research centers. From an IT perspective, about 220 IT staff, out of which 55% are central. And when I started at Concordia, there were no enterprise architecture team, none. A number of detailed architects in different functions, but no global enterprise architecture architects. So just in terms of context, so when I joined Concordia in 2010, there were no CIO at the time. There were a number of IT leaders in different departments, but no global CIO for the university. No IT governance, no strat plan, and a very, what I call anti-IT culture. Everybody was against IT. Nobody liked IT. I'm sure it's unique to Concordia. So it was a challenge to try to reach out to everybody and try to bring everybody under one vision, one plan. So really, the intent of the EA for me was really to talk to everybody and try to develop that common vision. And of course, multiple data centers, multiple redundant systems, a number of outdated and definitely not non-integrated systems. So again, my objective were to do a university-wide scan of all business functions. So it's really a business perspective that I was looking for, not a technology perspective. I was trying to understand what were the business problems. And one of the things I learned when I joined Concordia is that you don't see business,
Business seems to be a bad word in universities. But I come from the private sector, so I'm using business because I want people to think about, is it really something we need to do? What's the business goal of doing everything we do? So I use that university-wide perspective. My objective was also to develop that vision, where we want to go as a university in 5 years. That's a vision, it's not a strat plan. So don't expect, and that was not my expectation, to come out of the EA with a strat plan, but rather a vision and a roadmap. And my third objective, which is a bit a strange objective, but really it speaks to the intent of the exercise. I wanted to compress this into 7 months. I didn't want to do a 2-year enterprise architecture review. Damien mentioned about this, so we should try to work at a certain level, not go in too much details, because in 2 years you lose focus, you lose people, you don't see what's the outcome and the benefit. So I try to compress that in 7 months, and also to be in time for the next budget cycle. So we've talked to everybody, all deans, associate deans, VP, associate VPs, and the key players in each of those teams. We involve everybody, so nobody at the end of this exercise could say, I was not consulted. So it was very exhaustive in terms of bringing everybody in this exercise. It was a major commitment from me. This is not something I choose to delegate. I put in the time in interviews and defining the vision as much as I could, because I wanted this to be really a business perspective, again, a high-level perspective on where we want to go, not a technical discussion. When I joined Concordia, I put in place a couple of steering committees. One of them was the IS Advisory Committee, which is made of deans and associate deans and VPs, and also a technology steering committee, which is more technical and one layer below. So before doing the exercise, and as we did the exercise, these two committees were involved on a monthly basis. So again, at the end of the exercise, nobody could say that they were not involved. It was very inclusive. And I had no chief architect at the time, so I volunteered one of my directors to help me in this. And at the end, I rewrote his job description to be more in that role. So the benefits, the high-level benefits, again, I could make a long presentation on benefits, but globally, everybody realized that we were working in silos. A lot of disconnects from a process perspective, but also from a data perspective. Of course, not cost-effective, very expensive model to operate. We look at this from all business function point of view, so academic, business function and admin functions. We've done a detailed review of everything that was done in terms of processes and data management. And we came out of this with what are the priorities for us. And there was a number of priorities, and that was one of the benefits expected of this exercise, is to manage demand. Because as you know, we receive a lot of demand from everywhere. Everything is important. So how do you manage demand? This exercise turned out to be a very good exercise to identify priorities and agreed together on the priorities. So one example is on the system side, when I was talking to HR system replacement was a priority. Talking about the finance system, that was also identified as a top priority. And the student information system was a top priority. So we had to agree on what was the real priority. We could not do everything. And we came out with everybody with an agreement that from a process perspective, and from a data issue perspective, the student information system was the university priority. So we're starting with this. We're currently doing an SIS replacement project. So that in itself, it's a huge benefit. And I'm mentioning that technology is a secondary objective. It is and it is not. At the end of the day, we're going to have to implement all these decisions. But when I engage everybody in that discussion, that was really about how we want to operate, not what we should do. Should we go to PeopleSoft or Banner? We never talk about technology when I engage with the dean and the AVPs. We agreed on architecture principles. That's also very useful going forward. And it talks about no more data redundancy. How do we deal with data integrity, security, and all of these management principles, not necessarily, again, technology principle. So it's helping a lot manage investment going forward, because when we take an investment decision, these investment decisions are based on the principle we've agreed upon before. And that was useful to develop my strat plan. So again, we developed a roadmap with the EA, and we translated that into a 3-year strat plan. And the strat plan is more a commitment compared to the EA where it was more an intent. So that's why you don't need to spend 3 years developing a first iteration of your EA, because that's only one of the input to develop your strat plan. In my case, anyway. So that's only to show we use KPMG methodology, and we've put visibility on all these functions. And the top layer is all the academic function, and in the right column, the main admin function. So we put visibility on where we have major gaps in terms of process, data, and technology. So everywhere where it's red, that's definitely a priority. Yellow, we need to address. Green, we're okay for a while. And the blue, it's something we need to spend a little more time, but not necessarily an issue. So we've done that review, and again, it helped us a lot to identify the real priorities. And we came up with 19 strategies, and the strategies were really about what kind of user experience we want to provide to the students, where can we improve process, that type of strategies. So out of these strategies, we developed the vision from again, data management, technology, application, etc. So there's a presentation that take on all these vision and migration plan. But I wanted to show one example which speaks to me in terms of how we can improve at Concordia. So that was the before and after. If you look at the left quadrant, we mapped all applications, and we've rated them from a technical condition, but also from a value for Concordia perspective. In a perfect world, you want to have everything in the top right corner, in good technical condition, and everything is valuable for Concordia. But as you can see, we have a number of applications in the right bottom corner, and all of these are issues. So we've developed a vision where we try to move everything in the top right corner, but also we're trying to simplify the portfolio footprint. So out of this, we're expecting to reduce the application portfolio by about 50%. So 50%, that's a lot. But from a TCO perspective, you can imagine that we'll save a lot in terms of total cost of ownership, less resources, less technology, less time spent in trying to reconcile system, less time trying to resolve data and reporting issues. So this is where we're going with this 5-year vision. So that's my 10-minute presentation on the EA. And I guess we'll entertain question after.
Yeah.
Okay.
Next. There's no microphone there, right?
Yeah, it's
there
one
is?
there.
Okay. No, but it's on for the virtual.
Well, you saw the...
Just so that's one.
Right.
So I have a bit of a problem with my voice. So if I'm not clear enough, tell me, and I'll go and sit in front of one of those things. So Miguel, same context, but a different phase. So Concordia talked about their project. It was a first iteration. In our case, it was a second iteration. So Miguel is 13 faculties, including medicine, and I say that because medicine is a problem everywhere there is medicine. Followed closely by engineering. 36,000 students, a lot of research. Miguel is a very intensive research institution. We have an IT budget of $42 million, 300 centralized IT staff. At McGill, IT is very centralized. When we compared and we look at EDUCAUSE data, most institutions are around 50%, which means 50% central and 50% in faculties. In our case, it's 75% central and 25% decentralized. And one of the reasons for that is that we entered with a federated relationship with our faculties through SLAs. That was done in the 2000s, and we offered each faculty to take over their IT staff, sign an SLA with them, and manage in a federated way with the staff still located in their facilities, but managed centrally. This was a kind of a win-win situation, especially for the staff, because they got more mobility, better career opportunity, better training and support, and also for the faculty, because the faculty got the possibility of having somebody else manage all the HR issues around technical staff. So, but that makes us a bit different when we compare to other institutions. So there was a first IT iteration that was done in 2011, just before I came into McGill. So that was kind of fun. I came in and I had that huge report, everything done. So that was kind of nice. But at that point, we had done, as Damien has presented, and also Concordia, a high level. What we hadn't done, so we had this heat map saying where were the issues. So we knew that we have issues in our, mostly in our ERP environment. And also the end of our contract with Banner that's coming up in next year. So both of those conditions made us say, well, what exactly is the issue with those problems? Is it an application problem? Is it a process problem? Is it an implementation issue? It hasn't been decentralized enough, or whatever other causes could bring us to have a lot of red areas in certain functions. So we decided to do a second iteration, and with having a focus more centered around the application themselves and saying, well, where exactly is the issue? So do we need to replace those applications? Do we need to fine-tune the implementation? Do we need to revise processes? So that was done. Then again, in a quite rapid cycle, I'd say about 6 to 7 months to pass through everything. We also wanted to prioritize around everything we were saying, because it was quite a lot of red in that map and limited budgets like everywhere. So at some point, you know, we could build a roadmap that will cost $300 million over 5 years, but realistically, that's not what we're going to do. So that second iteration had the emphasis on the ERP. We met again with all faculty and administrative units, being very careful to start by the end point of the first iteration. So one of the artifact that was produced in the first iteration is that we had a one-pager for each faculty and each unit, identifying all the issues, but also the plans, the business plan of that unit, where they wanted to go, and where they saw some gaps between what was offered by IT and what they needed to support those initiatives that they were seeing coming forward. So the discussion started there. We had already, some of those issues had been addressed, others not, of course, not just a year or so after. But already we were saying, well, now we're looking at the second phase. Let's look at how we can really address those different issues. We also used the process to update the application portfolio. I think one thing that's important is that when we talk with faculties, sometimes they tell us, oh, but we have an application that does that. So we don't need a central one, we have one. But it's not necessarily applicable to all other faculties. It's not necessarily scalable, but at the same time, it can be a really good prototype of what we should be looking to if we decide to build an enterprise application for that function, specific function. And that is something that the faculties appreciate, that we recognize that they can also do interesting work, and that can be useful to us. So diagnostic on the main processes. mainly student finance, HR, to which we added research. So each research is not supported by our current ERP, which is Banner. We use another system that's called InfoEd, but we thought that that was kind of part of our core missions. So if we were to assess the application that we're supporting them, we also needed to assess InfoEd in that context. So list and prioritize all projects required by the business and IT to provide a total picture to our stakeholder. That was something that was asked to us by our IT steering committee. They were saying, well, we're seeing projects come up, but we need to have kind of the big picture, know exactly what is the scale of all the things that you're going to bring up to us. At the time, there was no 3-year planning. So we're kind of nebulous and saying, well, we approved this today, but maybe there's something you're going to bring tomorrow that in fact is more important, that actually we should have been focused our resources on that either. So one of the things that they really wanted out of that is have that sense of the global picture and everything that was thought of being a priority for the next few years. So that brings, I think, one of the main value of doing enterprise architecture, besides gathering a lot of knowledge on what we're doing, but it is also a way of being able to communicate effectively with our stakeholders in a context that is always difficult. As Max said, everybody's project is very important and the most important thing for the institution. So you need ways to be able to present things in a way that will relativize, that importance when we look at compared to everything else. So one of the tools that we built specifically in this case to communicate with our stakeholders was a quadrant, but with a different axis as what we see usually. So one of the axes is return on investment. So that's kind of clear. If we have projects that either decrease costs significantly for the institution or augment revenues, then it's a plus, especially when we're financially in a very dire position. Anything that's going to help the bottom line is a good thing. On the other hand, we also have a core mission. So the other axe is, what is the experience change this system is going to bring to student or faculty? So that for us was really important to say, well, this is strategic. This is something that is really aligned to our core business. So we have two main stakeholders, student and faculty, who are generally not there when we discuss technology and priority. This is something that we're trying to correct, bringing students to participate more in our coordination committees and also in our steering committees for the different initiatives. Faculty is a nightmare to try to engage and bring into discussions. But we wanted a way to say, well, is this project really bringing value to them? Or is it really back office? We tend to work a lot for the back office. So, well, mainly because we talk to them a lot and we see them a lot, so we're very conscious of their needs. So that presented an interesting view. The other thing we did is the size of the bubble represents the amount of effort, time, and money that will have to be put into that project. So a very small project that is in the top right corner, well, should be done. It's not costly, it's not a big effort, and it brings not only value to our faculty and students, but also a return on investment. So those cases should be no-brainers. We should say, oh, yeah, let's go ahead with those. The bigger ones, we should look at, well, they bring a lot of value. If I think about this one, for example, but it is very costly and it is going to require a lot of effort. And effort is important. One of the things that we were trying to bring into a kind of an awareness at the higher level of decision-making is that a lot of those projects require a lot of effort from IT, but also a lot of effort from the user community. They have to be involved as subject matter experts. They will be testing the applications. They will be seconded to the project. And sometimes you realize that a lot of those projects are engaging the same people. So in a context where we're diminishing our staff and we're cutting positions, if we lay on too many projects on always the same resources, we're going to kill them. So we have to think about that also. What is the capacity of the organization to absorb those projects and make them work? So the idea here is an image is worth 1,000 words. When you're able to present that in a very visual way, it becomes easier to have those discussions, and the point that we're trying to put across become clearer to our deciders. So this is the student priority mapping. So we have all so at the end of the exercise, just to give you an idea, we identified 70 high priority projects in all of our core areas. So, and those projects represent, if I remember correctly, about $240 million investment. So realistically, this has to be trimmed down. And this is what we use to have that discussion with our VPs and deans. We have 4 deans on our IT steering committees, plus all the VPs. So it's a very high-level committee and people who are really able to take decisions, you would think. And then we presented that, and they were kind of really awed by the scale of it. But the funny thing is, at the end of the day, they said, okay, but this is so much, because there's one page for student, but there's a page for HR, there's a page for finance, there's a page for research. And they look at that and they say, oh, this is overwhelming. So they turned and they said, okay, UIT, take the decision. Please tell us, what are the 3 most important projects? So, and it was interesting because, so okay, 3, I said, only 3, really? So in our case, contrarily to Concordia, where the major pain point was the student system, in our case, the main pain point is the HR system. HR was implemented in the 90s. It was implemented as a very centralized application managed by central IT. But then in the 2000s, they decided to decentralize functions, but they didn't decentralize the system. So everything is manual, all paper-based. It is extremely cumbersome. The processes are horrible. And in this case, the interesting thing is that we will start by a business project. It will not be an IT project. So we will do a first major project to revise all processes, clean up everything from a business perspective, and then we will look at technology and wonder what type of system are we going to put in place. Or are we going to simply re-implement our current system, but in a decentralized way? So that was interesting, but it goes to show that even when people have all the information, and sometimes we wonder why people don't invest time and effort into looking in IT and taking decisions, and we feel frustrated because we say, why is IT asked to take those decisions? Why, in fact, it should be the stakeholders who should be taking those decisions. Well, mainly it's because it's overwhelming. It's so much. It is so ingrained in everything that we do that it becomes very difficult to decide what is a priority, and all the politics comes into play. And but strangely enough, the VP of Finance told me that he agreed with me that HR was more important than finance. So that was kind of a sweet spot of all that discussion, saying, well, if you can recognize that. And the registrar is also saying, yeah, in fact, it's true. And the other thing is that we really believe that doing HR project is going to be a way to alleviate a lot of workload in the different business units that are currently being very affected by the cuts that we're doing at Miguel.
I will do the time manager here.
Yeah, okay. I'm finished.
I'm going to go with the University of Ottawa.
Yes.
For me, it was my third time going through enterprise architecture. I knew what I was getting on. I knew how strategic it could be for the organization. I had three main goals prior to coming into doing it at University of Ottawa. It has three meanings: understanding, communication, and moving forward. So this is why I was committing to doing the enterprise architecture, and I had already announced via my interview process that it was for me the stepping stone into understanding the business, being able to understand people enough to communicate with them in a language they would understand, and furthermore, being able to organize ourselves so we can move forward in a fashion that would allow us to be efficient and have a very good partnership. So at this point, I didn't even know the organization that was joining the ship. My university has 11 faculty, including a faculty of medicine. I'm very, very lucky because faculty of medicine and my group are getting along pretty well. Actually, they ask us to manage and synchronize both implementation because we're implementing 2 SIS in parallel, one for medicine and one for the organization. And we wanted to make sure, and it started with EA, that we were able to align ourselves and understand. EA made this possible, that we needed to work together in order to minimize any rework, and really be efficient in the way we were going to implement both systems. So we have 42,000 students, and we are a research-intensive institution. Our budget is really, really small for, if you ask me, 24 million, mostly if you look into everything that we need to do. We're not very centralized, actually. We're one of the lowest. We're 42% centralized. So we have IT organization within every faculty, and we have IT resources spread all across service units. I was a new CIO, as I said earlier, and we didn't have an enterprise architecture team. We don't have an architecture team per se, so we didn't have any. My team did a good work, but still it was a struggle understanding, if you can imagine, all those decentralized IT sector, to understand what was in place and what was to do. When I came on board, I thought that we almost didn't do anything. The portfolio was good, but was pretty small compared to. And then I realized, moving to EA, that we were doing a lot. We were not doing it centrally. We were doing the same of everything all over the place, or we were doing really good thing, but others didn't know about it. So it was really helpful for everybody to get together around understanding what each and every one of us were doing and how we could better work if we align ourselves and work in partnership rather than work each in our own silos. What are our current issue? We need to replace SIS. We need to find how we will prioritize all the major initiatives, but I've talked about this and we used the enterprise architecture, so I will come back. Mainly I said those things, so we're going to move to the other one. Okay. I took the same slide Damien started with to put it into my perspective. So we have a vision 2020. I needed to, when I came on board, to validate if what we had in terms of technology allowed us to support the achievement of Vision 2020. I needed to see and to understand if technology in place allowed us to support the core mission. All those, the slide that Mark showed you about all those red and green and blue, it's all our core business function. I needed to understand where we were, and also, did we have the technology in place to support those core functions? We needed to provide ourselves, because we were so decentralized. When we did EA, we didn't do it as a central IT organization. the way we presented it to everybody was we're doing it institution-wide. We are doing it together. It's not just central IT that's doing it. The result of it will go back to each and every one of us. So we needed to give us guiding principles so that moving forward, we would at least have some guideline into, okay, if I do that, is it okay? How can it work with regard to, am I going to disrupt or destroy something that's being done elsewhere? So it also gave us an opportunity to develop a cohesive vision around IT. We also are in the middle. This is the next step. We designed a governance model framework. We're now currently moving into the next phase where we really need to consolidate and to see how it works and to define and work around it, so to make sure that we are going to become efficient at working together. Like Damien said on his slide, in my world, every dollar counts, and we're hoping that it's going to help us do more from a startup, at least with the same budget, if we if we're not able to get some more. I'm going to jump this one and go. I want to show you, I have only 5 minutes left, and I want to talk about an artifact that we developed. As Guylaine and Marc said, one of the beautiful things about enterprise architecture is to develop different tools that help us communicate. In our case, what we ended up using was Maslow pyramid. For those who know, it's a pyramid of needs, basic needs at the bottom, like the most, how would you say, strategic needs on the top. So eating, sleeping at the bottom. What this helps us to do is really see that within our organization, one of the major challenge is that, and I'm going to go to the next one actually, is that we add major critical need all throughout the pyramid, starting from the bottom. And it's history will create where you are today. One of the challenge here is the institution grew so fast, but the structure, the organizational structure couldn't follow. We went from a smaller university to a 40-something number of students. So, but we never adapt the infrastructure, the organization, to be able to support that growth. So we did some initiative, but we found that going through the EE architecture, we had basic IT process that were not. I've done enterprise architecture 3 times. It's the first time that I looked into pay. Because usually pay is the first system that works properly. Here, what it helped us discover and highlight through the entire population was that because we had a problem centrally, I had 11 systems throughout the faculty to validate that the pay that was produced centrally was accurate, but also to correct the mistake that the system was. And it was a mix of having each faculty having developed their own system, but also having a cumbersome manual process to support it. So that's what EA will help you highlight. And then bring it over, it makes no sense. There is an interest in us working together. I don't believe in completely centralizing IT, but it will also bring into perspective one thing that is very, very important. When you don't have a lot of money, whether or not you see it before, it will highlight to you that there is some places where you share the same process. And there is a major advantage in putting your money together to do one solution for everybody. It will also highlight exactly where you're so different. Like at the beginning when we spoke with medicine, we were like, do you really need a different SIS system? By the end of the enterprise architecture, and we drilled down into those 2 specific areas because we were moving forward with project specific to SIS, we all acknowledged the fact that we needed 2 separate systems, but what we needed to do also is work really closely together to be able to tackle right away all the integration points And wherever there were overlaps between the two systems, that we would use the main one to address, like the central system will be the sole source where we're going to identify who's the student. So I think I've been through most of my time. I skipped some slides, but I think I wanted to communicate to you how I see the enterprise architecture of it's my compass. For me, it's my compass is what I use to move forward. Moving forward will also mean how we're going to put an organization to be able to manage that. When I started here, I proposed a model. Moving forward, we're already in the midst of, okay, we're going to have to adapt it. The way we thought it was, we wanted to reuse existing forum. Like they were a group already existing talking about something. But we found out as we moved along that it wasn't as easy as we thought to just reuse meetings. So we're creating or adjusting and discussing with the different audience about how to best represent their need. And what we're doing is we're going to align this process because it's a living thing to the budget exercise. So each year, right before the budget exercise, we're going to validate that whatever we decided as a roadmap is still valid, but also that if new requirements are being introduced, that there is room to adjust the roadmap and to introduce those new needs and adjust our roadmap as we move forward. Furthermore, we're going to have at least 2 or 3 meetings on top of the budget preparation exercise to be able to see if we're still on track and how we're moving forward. So I think that without a governance framework, it's going to die on a shelf. So you really need to find a way to implement an organization and structure that will allow you to maintain and evolve with the enterprise architecture. So at this point, I would invite people, if you have any questions for all the panel. I would also salute that I did it in my previous slide with Damien KPMG, and I want to, Damien knows a lot about university, and it was really useful for me because being new and not having an enterprise architecture on site, it helped me a lot going through this exercise because I wouldn't have been able to do it by myself. So I wanted to thank him and salute his expertise within that field.
Thank you. Any question? I think it's interesting to see how a project, the same project, get different results for each of those universities. So if you have specific questions to anyone, yeah?
I think the idea of having usability be a dimension on the impact chart is excellent. Can you say a little bit about how you measure usability for that chart?
I think it's more of a empirical type of decision. So you look at an application and you say, well, will this be used by faculty or students? Is this going to change their experience? If the answer is no, then it's very low in the chart. If it's that's, for example, if we're building a new admission system for graduate students, that has will have a high rating. If we're building a milestone system to follow our graduate students through their program. So as they submitted their subject, have they done their review of literature, etc. That also has something, it will change the experience of the student. He'll get tighter supervision. It will also change the experience of the faculty because they will be getting message saying, well, your student has not respected this deadline or whatever. So it's quite easy in a way if you look at a system to say, well, does it have any impact at all on the student or faculty? And if so, is this impact minor or is it major? And then you position. But you're right in the sense that there is no solid scientific measure that would tell us, oh, is it here or is it a little more here or a little higher or a little lower? I think the idea is to get a sense of where those are positioned towards those two acts, but there's not a very stringent methodology that we follow to do that placement.
But putting them in the same view helps. No, this is better. This is more important to the student.
No, it's kind of one related to the other.
Yeah. Yeah.
In 2 or 3 use cases that was a way that enterprise architecture skill sets in the organization. I wonder if you can incorporate those skill sets into your organization.
Headhunter.
It is a very, so in our case at
Big
McGill,
challenge.
we had the chance of having one of our staff who already had an appropriate skill set and who was moved into the position of enterprise architect. And that was a huge help because it kind of gave us not only that vision, but also the profound knowledge of the institution because of this person who has worked at McGill for a long time. Now we have 3 enterprise architects. Both other hires were extremely long and took a lot, more than a year in both cases before we finally found people that were appropriate for that position. It is extremely difficult to find good enterprise architects.
In my case,
No.
we hired a consultant because just from a pure capacity, we did not have the capacity to do the exercise. But for each of the domain, I've appointed the right director or manager. So because it was about developing a vision, my application portfolio director or my infrastructure director, or all of them were involved in all of these interviews and detailed design discussions. So you can hire a number of architects, but do you need a number of architects after that? So maybe you need, depending on the size of your shop, you need a couple to maintain and manage the day-to-day. But at the end of the day, it's about, from my perspective, where you want to be in 5 years. So I force the discussion to be at the manager and director level. And in a way, they are architects. They define the vision. So that's all I compensate.
We're going with a mix. We're going to have an architecture team. It's not a large size. It's going to be composed of an enterprise architect, and it's really, really a rare type of a person on the market. So we're doing business with a headhunter, but he's going to be managing also the security architect. I know it's a funny mix, but what we wanted to ensure is that we would have a cohesive approach to architecture. Whenever we start something, that we would take into consideration right from the start the security aspect of everything that we would be doing. And the rest is within the application portfolio management. We're making sure that we are going to be hiring portfolio managers that are senior functional analysts, and with the director in place, that's what we believe will be the cohesive, the glue to put everything together. But mainly the architecture team will be there for the vision and to ensure that everybody works in an aligned fashion. And the directors and the portfolio manager will work to ensure that we also are still aligned and work with regard to what we defined.
A short question, but long answers. Other question? Whoa.
You mentioned about capacity and I'm just wondering prioritization. I'm just wondering how you manage with things that sort of push against that in terms of competing priorities throughout the life of the project and maintain that prioritization with limited resources.
I think you need to partner with your colleagues. So with the registrar, with HR VP, with finance, and get them to share that comprehension that they have to be part of the choice because they're putting a significant part of the resources. And we don't want cases that used to happen quite a lot where we have code sitting in QA waiting to be tested for a very long time before we finally manage to put it into production. So that's wasted time and wasted effort. So there's a real, there has to be that. So we need to take those decisions. Okay, you're bringing me something new, but we're currently working on this and your resources are involved there. So will you be able to add this new project? Will you be able to delegate the appropriate resources? Will it have an impact on the resources you already seconded for the first project? And what is your decision? I can envision a case where somebody would decide, okay, we'll stop this and we'll do the other because for whatever reason it is really an emergency. But in most cases, what we tend to see is building that collaboration in terms of planning and resource allocation means that you get real partners to help you out, and they will speak up. They will say, okay, no, this is not possible. You cannot ask IT to do this because we're already involved in this, and that has to be done. So it becomes more of you're all talking the same language instead of having IT trying to raise a flag and being alone on the.
If I may add, at the University of Ottawa, when we visit each faculty and service unit, I never saw such collaboration from an organization. Each dean came with his entire management team and spent 2.5 hours with us reviewing their needs, what they believe were the opportunity, their challenges. It was amazing. This rector did the same things. We ended up building a very comprehensive understanding of the entire organization. And one of the things that we discussed was IT cannot do it alone. If you're not on board, just say so. It's the end of the experience.
Yeah, I think we'll be at the end. So I think if you have other questions, you can come. You know them. You will see them all during all of those 3 days. I will be around for the day. So if you have any question after, feel free to talk to us directly.